Welcome to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco, bringing you interviews with industry experts and regular folks who tested the job search waters and succeeded, and strategies to tell your story and land you job interviews in 60 days, guaranteed. Here's your host, Virginia Franco.
Hey guys, welcome to the Resume Storyteller podcast. I'm so excited to have with me today Rob Lalgee, who is a recruitment consultant, and he has a passion about changing and impacting the recruiting industry to improve both the client and the candidate experience. Before jumping into recruiting, he'd worked in financial services with Wells Fargo and FirstBank of Colorado, where he focused on sales, management, and lending. He joined Titus Talent 4 years ago, and they're a unique recruiting agency that partners with everyone from small to publicly traded companies to place everyone from estimators, project managers, C-suite talent, and more. He is very active on LinkedIn, which is where he and I first connected, and shares blogs and resources for both candidates and hiring managers. He's also passionate about spreading awareness around mental health in the business place. Joel does offer coaching and career consulting to both job seekers and select clients. So Joel, thank you so much and welcome.
Thanks. So great to be here. I appreciate your time and inviting me to come on the show. Super excited to share today. So thank you for that.
Yeah. So you heard the brief bio, but I'd love to hear in your words exactly what you do day in and out, and how did you come to the recruiting agency or the recruiting side of the house?
Yeah, absolutely. So to give a little bit of a background, in college, I was really focused on the financial world. So I got my degree in finance, and I really had that idea that one day when I grew up, I was going to be a stock trader. I was going to be in the financial industry, helping people. I could have seen myself as a financial advisor, an underwriter, helping people out with loans. I really just had a passion for numbers, and that was really educationally where I succeeded. I was good at math, really good at conceptually understanding business from the financial point of view. The only struggle that I had ever really in any of my finance classes was this other passion, which is just for people connecting and having conversations. So I think a lot of people would think of an accountant or a financial person as being a little bit more reserved. Mm-hmm. I'm the complete opposite. I'm in all my finance classes, just chatting up a storm, distracting everybody.
The extrovert they couldn't stand.
Exactly. So it's like you have this introverted world in these classrooms where everybody's very reserved. Nobody's really wanting to get to know each other. And then this just guy who's just wanting to talk to everybody and did well and always, had my hand up for every question and really participated. But I think that was really the beginning of understanding that, yes, I'm good at math. Yes, I'm good at the accounting and finance side. But from a personality standpoint, I'm probably going to annoy anybody else that I'm working with. And and then I graduated right around the recession too. So those positions, particularly in finance, were extremely challenging to get into at that time.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
And I think we're kind of in that time a little bit as well, where there's certain industries that when an economic slowdown occurs, it's just really hard to get into. You've got to know somebody or you've got to have graduated from a certain school. So so I graduated college and I got my first job at Wells Fargo. I thought it made sense that I'd be working with more of the consumer clients, more of the kind of retail clients is what we would call it. So worked pretty closely with the tellers at the bank, the financial advisors, and really just acting as that advisor to anybody that would come in and have questions, and really just sold people on financial services. Again, with my personality, the banking world's so regulated, it's so rigid. So I'm the type of guy that if you put a set of rules, I'm going to try and figure out every way to still be successful without following any of those rules.
Okay.
And so we would have regulations.
Banking, yeah.
it's just that classic stuffy banking industry.
Yeah.
So I moved out to California about 8 years ago, and I moved there because I just felt like that was the type of place where people were doing things, and continued to work for the bank. And after about 3 years of being out there, I just decided to move back to the Milwaukee area. That's where my family is. And I just felt like, yeah, this is the time. I need to move back. I've got some family issues going on. And so I just left my job at the bank, and I had no idea really what I was going to do when I got back into town.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, kind of just a big change. I felt like after 7 years in the banking industry, this just really isn't for me. And 7 years of being in finance and banking just felt that's it. I need to find something else.
Well, it's a big leap of faith.
A big leap of faith. Just jumped into the car, drove 27 hours one way, didn't take any breaks, and just really felt like, okay, this is what I need to do. And when I got back into town, I reconnected with a longtime mentor of mine who's currently my CEO, and he's just a great guy, really big supporter, somebody who really takes chances on people and just really believes the best for people. And we started talking. I knew he was in recruitment. I wasn't sure what he was involved with. Last time I had talked to him, he was working for Randstad, which is a huge recruiting firm. Mm-hmm. And I thought, this is probably a good guy to talk to about jobs. And in that time period that I had left Wisconsin and kind of gone out to California, right around that same time period, he had left Randstad, this huge staffing agency, and started working for a risk and finance company that really helped companies manage their risk and finance, but had a lot of clients that were asking about recruiting. And mm-hmm. they saw an opportunity to pick up clients in the recruiting industry. And they headhunted my current CEO and said, we'd love for you to come and be a part of the company. So he ended up working for them. And 3 years later, they sold the risk side of the company and finance side of the company and started this company that I work for right now, which is Titus Talent Strategies.
Okay, and, so you were there almost from the beginning then.
Right from the beginning. So I think I was 6 months into when they had officially broken off and kind of started as an individual agency. And there were 9 people working there when I started. So, wow. Yeah, pretty small, tight-knit group.
Okay. And so what is your niche in terms of recruiting?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my focus is really within the construction industry right now. So most of my clients are mid-sized to large, I'd say kind of large/mid-sized general contractors. So they might be doing anywhere from $200 million a year to, I think our biggest client that I work with is doing around $1 billion a year of work. So, they're doing pretty large projects. They're not necessarily the big players in the game, but typically, they're really well known in the area that they're working in. They might have different geographies that they work in. And so that would be my focus. And within that, I focus on managing the relationships and then managing the overall project, making sure we're finding good candidates for them. We're placing quality candidates.
Okay. And then in terms of candidates, you're talking everything from project engineers and estimators all the way up to the C-suite of those organizations?
Yeah, exactly. So probably the most common searches that we work on would be the estimators, project engineers, superintendents. So people who are managing the job either in the field or the office. Yeah. And then occasionally with some of our clients, we have placed, I've personally placed a president of a region, CFOs, some of those C-suite positions as well.
So you see things from both ends. You get to, what the clients need, and then what candidates are facing. Because most of our listeners are on the candidate side, I would love to hear from you. What are a couple of challenges that you see people that are, that are searching in your industry and are looking to get hired by your clients?
Yeah, I think right now we're in a really unique time as far as the construction industry goes. There's definitely a scarcity of talent. So most people are working, and there's not a huge active candidate base. But if you are in that candidate base that is active, the biggest question that you're going to face, and I think this would be probably for most industries right now, the biggest question that a hiring manager would ask me is, why is this person looking? Particularly if they're if somebody isn't employed right now. I think the perception from most hiring managers is that's a red flag. In a time where everybody's working and everybody's busy, why is this person not busy? Did they have a problem with their last job? So I think overcoming that initial red flag, so to speak, for hiring managers, that's probably the biggest issue. And I don't think that as a candidate, you really get to voice that unless you obviously have a conversation either with a recruiter that's gotten in with a hiring manager, or you're able to contact that hiring manager right away and really have that conversation with them.
So do you recommend that people be upfront about any gaps in employment if they had to go and, take leave to take care of an ailing loved one or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to handle it, is to upfront be as transparent as possible. And I think if you know that there's red flags that you see, either whether that's gaps, whether that's a current situation, I think you have to be upfront with that.
Yeah.
Luckily, with the construction industry, gaps are fairly common. A lot of people will decide that they want to start their own construction company, or they want to take a little bit of a break from the industry and maybe act as a residential GC for a while and open up their own business. There's a lot of companies that do start up and fail. So I think there's a little bit more of a conversation there within the construction industry.
Okay.
But, hiring managers, I think, will have these perceptions, and the challenge is through consulting and having conversations, to really open them up to the idea that just because somebody's had a gap, it doesn't take away from the skills that they bring or their ability to do the job.
So your advice is spell it out, address the red flag, get it off the table as soon as you can.
I think you have to do that. I think if you do that, then you're owning it. And I think there's a difference between owning something or somebody recognizing it and having reservations and then asking questions. It's two completely different situations. Yeah. You're more in control if you just own it right away. And
you're right. A lot of control the narrative.
Exactly. And that's where you want to be, especially as an active candidate or somebody that's really looking to make a move. You want to be in that control position where you're controlling the conversation and you're not just reacting to questions or red flags that they're seeing. You're proactive about it.
Now, on the client side as well as on the candidate side, is there something that you see that each side is has been surprised by during the candidate acquisition process?
Yeah, I think so many times in recruiting, the surprise is always that you're dealing with people. And I think when you're dealing with people, surprises are always going to come up. So I think from a candidate side, I've seen everything from, okay, these guys are moving really slow. They're taking a long time. I've also seen the flip side where I've seen offers go out after 3 days and candidates surprised by how quickly it's gone. Yeah, which
so the surprise is how erratic the process is.
Yeah, I had a situation recently, and this was actually outside of construction. This was with a really large client of ours, and they put out an offer after 2 half-an-hour conversations over the phone, and the candidate was really taken by surprise, and I don't think that it gave the candidate enough time to really process the actual change, and so the candidate felt very rushed, and it was definitely, as a recruiter, I am really pushing my clients right now and saying you do have to make the process faster than it usually is, because candidates, they don't want to sit around. But this was the first time I'd experienced a turnaround literally of a week. So a phone call on Monday, a phone call on Wednesday, an offer on Friday. And to me, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. That's so fast. Like you're sure about this candidate. But for the candidate, it was a little bit too overwhelming to where they're like, yeah, I haven't really had a chance to really get to know the hiring manager. I don't really feel like I've had a chance to process. And now there's an offer in front of me. So,
yeah. And to your point, whether it's really slow or ridiculously fast, it could be overwhelming or frustrating either way. Is it your
exactly.
sense that and maybe you could just speak to the construction industry, that the hiring life cycle is getting a little shorter? Because for years, I was helping people manage frustrations around how eternally long and how many rounds of interviews are required. Felt like there are just more and more hoops to jump through. Do you feel like that's getting better?
I think that in certain situations, it's getting better in terms of, I think as much as people hate the electronic changes that we're obviously experiencing in our culture, I think that does speed things up. The challenge that I find with speed is even when companies find somebody that checks all the boxes, there's still that desire to have 3 candidates to make a decision on. And I think that's really what slows everything down. It's almost like even if they find somebody that's perfect, matches all the boxes, they still want to have a comparison.
So we want choices.
Sure. I think that really slows down the process. So I think it has gotten faster, but really what I see is a huge issue within all of that, within the speed and within the time frame. A lot of it is to do with communication. So there's still a long way to go in terms of candidate experience and just really communication as a whole. So you find a lot of candidates are just waiting and they have no idea what they're waiting for. Yeah. Expectations haven't been set. And to me, those are easy fixes. You have a conversation with a candidate, you have an interview. Some companies are great saying, give us 3 to 5 days. We're interviewing other candidates. Give us 3 to 5 days and you'll hear back. A lot of companies are getting better with that, but then there's still that follow through of if you say 3 to 5 days, you have to follow through with that. And a lot of companies are still dropping the ball when it comes to the communication.
Yeah. No, that's I hear that all the time on both ends. I mean, in certain industries where candidates are a hot commodity, sometimes the feeling of being ghosted happens on that end as well. And I imagine you've experienced that.
And it does happen. And I can't sit here and say I'm perfect with all candidate follow-up. I mean, there's definitely candidates that do slip through the cracks. And I think I'd be a fool to say I'm perfect with that because, if I said that and somebody heard it.
Yeah. So one person will call you. You didn't call me back.
They will call you out. But I think, I encourage people, you can, as a candidate, you can follow up with people. And, I'm the type of recruiter that if somebody follows up to me and I drop the ball, I just admit it. Yeah, sorry, I didn't get back to you. This is what's going on. Okay. And I appreciate that. But I also know that in the recruiting world, especially with headhunters, time is money. And so a lot of headhunters are really conscious of once you're not valuable to them, they will cut you off. And that's actually one of the things that makes the company that I work for pretty unique. We have a very different billing model. And it's something that, our CEO really saw an issue within the recruiting world, particularly the agency recruiting world, that it was just such a money hungry world. And he sought to change that. And the company I work for right now, we bill for our time. We don't bill for the placement. And that gives us a lot more accountability. We're able to get a better ROI for the client. And it really means that I have the time because I'm getting paid for my time as opposed to getting paid for placement. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you have the luxury of time in some ways.
Luxury of time. And, we have that rule really once we're closing up a project, once we get the placement, we'll bill an extra couple of hours to really follow up with candidates because we understand that if I'm representing, a really well-known company, and I don't follow up with that candidate, that's only going to reflect poorly on that company.
Yeah, so you give them closure. That's wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm sure you've had a lot of conversations around that too, and it's never great when somebody doesn't have that closure, and it's confusing. And
well, I mean, and they take it personally because they're struggling. So that extra time cements your relationship. You're right. It's a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely.
So I am sure you see your fair share of. You've had your fair share of crazy job search war stories and nutty things that have come across your desk. What drives you most nuts when it comes to job seekers or candidates that you're looking for?
I think that the most stressful thing, or the kind of the horror stories, are some of the issues we've really talked about. And I think ghosting and just cutting off communication, it's happening more and more. And, I'm totally fine with somebody accepting a counteroffer and communicating that and giving us a heads up. But what I am seeing more of is we'll get an accepted offer, the start date set, and then the person doesn't show up for the start date. I think those are the most...
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's happening, and I think that's a fear of nobody wants to make that phone call and say, hey, I know I said I was really happy about the position and the offer, but my company gave me a better offer, or somebody else that I was interviewing with gave me a better offer. People don't like those conversations because people don't want to let people down. But you do see it now. People don't even show up, and I think those are the true horror stories. It's disappointing for the client, obviously, but then I just think long term,
well, and
a lot
it's
of these
expensive
industries
too. Gosh, you spent all that time sourcing that client, that candidate.
Yeah, exactly. And from our point of view, we bill for our time. So when something like that happens, you end up then with potentially a bill and no placement, which is incredibly frustrating. You lose a lot of the traction that you did have on the search because you've actually stopped looking. And then you've notified, you've let other people know, like, hey, you're not a good fit, and we've gone with someone else. And then you almost have to circle back around with them and say, actually, no, this person didn't. And it's just
let me go to my plan. Oh my gosh. Well, so what advice do you have for someone thinking about a candidate looking to make a career move? Where do you advise them to start?
Yeah, no, that's a great subject. So I recently wrote a blog on this too on LinkedIn, and the way I like to approach a job search would be similar to how you approach a sales process or a sales pipeline. So I like to reverse engineer it. So I have a lot of people reach out to me. I'm looking for a job, and the first question that I always ask is, well, where would you want to work? And I think the more specific that you can be on where you want to work and what you want to do, the higher likelihood you have of actually landing that position. Because otherwise, you're either playing the numbers game, which is let's apply everywhere.
Right.
If everybody's doing that, then you're going up against thousands of people. But if you don't really have a target, if you don't really have an end goal, without that vision and without seeing where you're going to end up, it's really hard then to start your way there. So a lot of people I talk to are kind of lost in that. I'll say, well, what are 5 companies you want to work with? I don't know. I guess anywhere. So I think
I'll do anything. I'll do anything. Right. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Which I think that mentality, I understand where that comes from. Obviously, you want to be open to lots of different things, but
right, and people don't want to narrow down their options.
They don't want to narrow down their options, but I guess the best analogy for it would just be in sales, where not everybody is your ideal client, and if you approach everybody as your ideal client, it's so overwhelming. And so a lot of times in sales, the best way to approach it is to have top 10, top 20 lists. Narrow down the people you need to get in contact with, and then start getting in contact with them. And I think from a company point of view, hiring managers are really, the question that they love to ask is, why does this person want to work for us? And I think if you've narrowed it down already and you're clear on why you want to work for that company, that separates you a lot from other candidates that have that mentality of, oh, I'll work anywhere. And then you're going and saying, no, I specifically picked this company because of these 3 reasons. I love this about your website. I love this about what you're doing. And it's the truth because you only have 5 companies you want to work with. So
yeah, and I recommend the same thing. Get a targeted list of companies or company type. Know what role you'd like in those kind of companies and narrow your focus. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Thank you. So what about someone who is, and I'm sure you get this, where they've been looking for a job for a while and it's not going anywhere? Where do you recommend they sort of get started on fixing what's going on?
I think the hardest thing with that I've experienced is we all have a sense of pride in who we are and the experiences that we have and even how we approach things. So I think the first step is just taking that serious, hard look at yourself and being humble about it and going, okay, obviously something's not working. That's the first step. I think if you don't get to that point and if you don't actually just accept the fact that maybe you're not doing something right, it becomes very hard to really find any success because you're just going to continue doing the same things over and over. And I get it. It's hard. And particularly when you've got a lot of really valuable experience and you're somebody that really can bring a lot to an organization, you want to have that sense of pride. I understand that. But I think you really do have to just look at it and have that honest conversation with yourself and go, something isn't adding up. And then the next step would be to find somebody like yourself, somebody like me who's experienced in recruiting that can really coach and guide. And within that, not looking at it and going, well, it's because I don't know what I'm doing. It's just understanding that things actually are changing rapidly and people who are within the industry see it. And as a recruiter, I'm having these conversations daily. So I get an inside unique look. You need to get with somebody that's having that unique perspective. Otherwise, it's really hard to look at yourself in the mirror and go, oh, I see all of these issues that are happening. So really getting with someone and just remaining humble and understanding that it's probably not you. It's more to do with the overall system that's really the problem. But within that, sometimes you got to adapt to the system to really play the system.
Yeah. The way you describe it reminds me of, you could be an expert driver if you don't have a map to get you there. It doesn't matter how good of a driver you are. So you look to guides and coaches to help you sort of navigate the landscape, because you're right, it is changing, and that doesn't detract from the fact that you might be an expert in your industry, your role, and you have a lot of fantastic experience and knowledge. You don't know this particular job search landscape well. That's not your thing.
Exactly. And I noticed on your website too, you do a really good job with explaining, there is a lot of power in the resume. And I think there is a lot of power in knowing how an ATS reads a resume. And those are things which the only way you could really know that is if you're in the recruiting industry and you're seeing it all the time. And I think a lot of people, they take it personally, or they say, I do know what I'm doing. And again, it's just letting go and going, okay, it's okay for me not to know this because this is not what I went to school for. It's not what I'm trained in. It's not what I'm dealing with every day. And so that would definitely be my first step. And then I think the second step with that too is just being open to potentially something outside of the box. I think people have an idea of what their ideal role is as well. And I think in talking to somebody who is a career coach or somebody that's experienced, there might be ideas that they have which are different to what you were thinking. And I think it's being open to those ideas. So maybe you're targeting a Fortune 500 company and really your skill set's better for a startup company. Or maybe you're looking at a startup company, but really the flexibility and those types of things aren't really your strength. And you actually need to be in somewhere that's more structured. And I think working through those conversations with a career coach, with somebody who's having a lot of those conversations, is really going to help you navigate that landscape as well. And hone in on really what the logical targets would be.
No, that's a really good point. What about, and I don't know how much you get this, but people that come to you and they say, well, I could do this or I could do that. So for my next opportunity, I want to consider a couple of different options. What advice do you have for them in terms of how making them great candidates for your clients?
Yeah, I think it's a huge challenge, particularly not really I think it's great if you're a candidate and you're going, hey, I want to go into a different industry. I want to try something new. I love that. I think that actually adds a lot, and it will add a lot to the diversity of skills that you'll learn, and it will make you a better candidate down the road as well, and really even a better person because you're going to just have different experiences. The challenge with that from my point of view is when I'm having a conversation with a hiring manager, most hiring managers want somebody who's already doing the job, and it makes sense why they would want that. They don't want to take the risk. So a lot of the time, especially in our day and age where the talent scarcity, I am coaching a lot of my clients that maybe you need to think a little bit outside of the box to find an ideal candidate. And we can't just look at the resume. We've got to look at the other intangibles. Like, what about this person functioning as a part of the team? What about these strengths that they learned in this industry? How would they apply to your industry? So I think that's where working with a recruiter like myself, the right recruiter, obviously, somebody that is looking to consult and looking to help you out and not just looking for a fee. I think if you're working with someone like that you really trust, they're going to be your advocate with the hiring manager. And I know I have a lot of those conversations where we'll be in a search for 10 weeks, and it's just clear that we're not going to find that 100% match or what they think is a 100% match. And so then I might find a candidate that's maybe that 60 to 80% match. And it's my job then to consult the client and say, look, we understand that I could be working on this for 2 years and never find this person. Let's open up. Let's think a little bit outside the box. And so I think from a candidate point of view, working with someone like myself, it's more of a consultant and less of a transactional headhunter is key. Mm-hmm. Again, working with a career coach, working with someone that is more of an advocate for you. It's going to be helpful. They're going to give you insights. And I think you approach the conversation differently. Maybe you need to start at a different level. And again, it comes back to the humility, and it comes back to, it's a tough pill to swallow for somebody that's been at a certain level to drop down. But I think you have to have that long-term perspective, believe in yourself that as quick as 18 months, you could get promoted into the level you want to be.
Right back up. Yeah. And no, in my job, as a writer is to try my best to match, to clearly delineate how 60 to 80% of the skills are transferable for those times when a recruiter has convinced the hiring manager or the hiring manager is ready to take a little bit of risk on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's again where that's your expertise. So you have to go to somebody that knows how to do that.
Yeah. So when you're on those long searches and it's not pretty people, where do you go to source those outside the box people? Do you go to LinkedIn? Do you post online, or a little bit of everything? Where are you finding people?
Yeah, so I'd say that the primary sourcing ground is LinkedIn. Now that's really to do with the types of positions that I'm hiring for. So I think those higher level positions, I want to say 60 to 70 people at least have some sort of LinkedIn presence. Mm-hmm. Facebook recently changed their privacy settings, making it super hard to source for people. So I don't waste my time on there. I will look at different projects, particularly public projects for construction, for example. They'll have listed on there as part of the bid proposal. They'll have it listed who the superintendent is, who the project manager is. So, yeah, I think with sourcing, you just, from a recruiting standpoint, you just have to constantly be thinking outside the box, constantly trying to figure out ways outside of LinkedIn. But LinkedIn has provided an amazing, an amazing information tool. And anytime I connect with someone on LinkedIn, I'm trying to make a genuine connection with the person. Hopefully candidates that I talk to, see that. I don't connect with everybody. Obviously, it's not, you can't really connect with everybody, but when you connect with someone and you get to know them a little bit, then it's asking for referrals for people that might not be on LinkedIn or might be a good fit. And so I think it's just always having that open mind. I think the most dangerous thing in recruiting is really thinking that you know everything, because things are changing so quick. So you just got to.
They really are. My gosh, yeah, keeping up with all this. It takes a village.
It does, and I think again, with the way that our company's set up, I have the luxury of not competing so much against my team, and we work together as a team. So I might have one of the other consultants say, "Hey, have you heard of this service that can source emails and phone numbers?" Go, "No, I've never heard of that. Here it is." And we're not competing against each other for fees. So we do really have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which helps out a lot. Yeah.
So I want to shift gears a little bit. This topic comes up. I get it all the time, and I'm curious to see if you've seen this impacting your industry. Questions about discrimination when it comes to age in particular, but also ethnicity, gender, all of that. What are your thoughts on the topic, and how do you advise your clients or your candidates?
Yeah, this is a huge issue. I mean, first of all, I think it is. And I think that I see a lot of people nowadays saying that these issues don't exist. And I think that's just garbage. Of course it exists. And I think as humans, the world that we live in, we make judgments on people all the time. It's how we are as humans. We'll look at somebody and we are making judgments based on past experiences, based on media, based on whatever we know. And part of that is just who we are as humans. And I think that that's actually okay. The challenge of it is how do you act on those judgments? And I think that's really where we have the decision. Like, I can't go against my own human function and look at somebody and not have a judgment. That happens. Stereotypes, all of that stuff happens. But it's how do I act on those stereotypes? Am I genuinely, discounting somebody because of the way they look, or based on how old they are, on all of those factors?
Right.
And I think that's the real issue. And so I think, first of all, just accepting the fact that we're going to make judgments. That's okay. It's how do you act on those? And I think from my perspective, it is a challenge, because obviously I'm paid by a client. So I'm subject to what my clients are looking for. They're paying me. I'm a partner for them, but I'm really a vendor for them too. So I can consult them as much as I can, but I also have that delicate relationship of they've hired me, they're paying me. And, but yeah, those are, I think age is probably the one that I see as really the biggest challenge for people nowadays. I think that's the one that we're seeing so many more issues around. And that's really more related to do, with technology, how fast technology is moving. So I think with age, if you see a more experienced candidate, the assumption is they're not up to date with the times. They can't keep up with technology. They're not going to be somebody that's going to be quick enough or fast enough to handle the software. They're not going to be able to adapt with this change. And that is obviously just complete stereotyping. It's complete making an assumption of the masses. Now, from a candidate point of view, I think there are certain things you can do to kind of help balance that perception. Number one,
to mitigate it. What advice do you have for them?
I think it's using a little bit of common sense here. So for one example, I think that's great is nowadays Gmail is like the email that people have. I mean, everybody
get rid of your AOL.
You got to get rid of the AOL or the Hotmail. I think Yahoo's okay, but I think just if it's something as simple as a Gmail to stop a perception, then go with that.
Yeah.
I think as far as your social media presence goes, I'm not saying you need to be on TikTok. I'm not saying you need to start a TikTok to show that you're emerging with it, but have your LinkedIn looking like you know how to use it. And, you know, sometimes that's taking a LinkedIn course. You know, there's videos and tutorials how to use LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You could spend an hour and you could learn a lot of how to really make your profile look good.
Yeah.
Again, with you know, that'd be, I think Facebook, okay, our employers checking Facebook, sure they are. I don't think that's as big a deal, but particularly with LinkedIn, because that is where a lot of recruiters are looking at candidates. So just making sure that you know how to use it. I think really attacking it and showing that you want to learn and you want to keep up with that goes a long way. And then from a personal standpoint, just in your own life, I think it is really investing that time into either, you know, you could go as far as to take new courses, you know, maybe in a technological field that might stretch you a little bit, particularly if you're out of work. That would be a great way to show.
Yeah, so that you learn some software proficiencies.
Exactly, but again, you can do that on YouTube, or you could do it by just reading books. But I think whatever you can do to show that you're somebody that can learn, that's going to go a long way. And you just have to almost accept the fact that if you are past a certain age, which I don't know what that is, but you make that own determination. And I think if that's the case, then you have to just anticipate that that's the judgments that people are going to make, and just do whatever you can to counteract that by showing that you're adaptable, that you're flexible, which are big deals. And, you know, I think this was a challenge that I faced 10 years ago coming into the workforce. Everybody had ideas about millennials, and they were making kind of
right. The discrimination happens both ways, too young, too old. Just basic blanket assumptions about generations.
And you got to be careful with that. And again, I think it just comes down to humility again. And this is on all angles. So I think from hiring managers, you just got to show humility and not just make judgments. And I think that's just all of us as a whole. But, you know, I've heard comments. I've had conversations with candidates where their last frustration in their job was somebody younger than them managing them. And I think that's where humility comes in, and you have to go, okay, it's fine for somebody younger than me to manage me. And it actually shows a lot about who I am if I'm not happy with that, because then you're saying you don't want that person to show discrimination to you, but you're kind of discriminating against them. And so that would be kind of
you advise candidates if they were frustrated about being managed by someone younger, keep it quiet.
Keep it quiet, and also just looking at like, why is that so irritating? And most of the time it's going to come down, it's going to be something where, well, I don't want to report into somebody younger than me. And I think, you know, I'm a very straightforward person, so I will say, well, you know, why is that? And a lot of times it's just really within ourselves. So
yeah, no, that's a really good point. And now on LinkedIn, if you pay for LinkedIn, you can access their courses, and they have all sorts of software courses. You can show that you've gained proficiency in them by taking, there's a certification quiz.
And I've seen those. I've seen people with certifications from LinkedIn posted on their profiles, and I actually wondered where they were getting those from. So that's something you get it from when you go to LinkedIn Learning. I think really
all of them do. I've been too afraid to try one. I probably need to do that, but I have not done it yet. People who have.
Well, there's so many people on LinkedIn. Like I think of there's like Michaela Alexis. I don't know if that name rings a bell, but she does a great job at just the basics. I mean, she kind of focuses more a little bit on like company LinkedIn, but she is posting just information all the time.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Like just free value. And so many people are doing that. So I think take those courses, get the certification, but then just always be curious about, what about this? Or what does this, do those other candidates that I'm associated with on the sidebar, what do they mean? And what about recommendations? What about endorsements? And it's just being knowledgeable with that. And I think it goes a long way.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I'm constantly monitoring what all the LinkedIn trainers are saying and doing, because the platform changes so fast. There's just no way to keep up with it.
Totally.
So follow
exactly.
them. So let's say someone comes up to you and says, I am getting ready to go start a job hunt. What are one or two things I absolutely need to have before I get going? What would you say?
I'd say number one, a good looking resume. And I mean, I think that kind of goes without saying. But number one, make sure the resume is great. I definitely would advise meeting with somebody that is a resume coach or somebody that understands resumes to make sure those keywords are in line.
Okay.
I think maybe having multiple resumes for multiple positions can be really helpful as well. And then the other one too, I think that people drop the ball on a lot is just good references. And I think that people don't really put that much emphasis on references. And a lot of times the references they have are they're the wrong references. So it'll be like, this guy I worked with 10 years ago that I'm friends with, and that's not helpful. Like, I think the most powerful references are probably client references. So if there's a client that really likes you, it's going to go a long way because obviously everybody's dealing with clients. So if you've got a client that loves you, it's going to go a long way. And I think, if you are going to use somebody from the past, using somebody within the last 5 years and somebody that directly managed you is key. Now, I understand that if you've been in your position for 10 years, that's not doable, but as close as you can get to that, you want to make sure it's somebody that's managed you directly, and you want to stay away from like coworkers, and you want to notify them too. I think that I've seen that be a huge roadblock for people.
Yeah, don't stalk them.
Yeah, and let them know and just say, hey, Dave, I'm going to have some companies calling you, because I've had clients that they won't hire somebody until they get those references. And it takes 3 weeks to get a hold of these references because the contact information is not up to date or they're not anticipating it. And so you got to give them the heads up on that.
And do you find it important, or do you find it compelling when someone has references from the last 5 year client references, or maybe, like you said, people that have managed them, when they have those as recommendations online on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Does that resonate at all?
For me, it does as a recruiter. I don't know how much that resonates with a hiring manager, but
okay.
I do. I will read through those recommendations, but it doesn't hold as much weight as, to me personally, it doesn't hold as much weight if someone applies and they say, on the bottom of the reference, or when they have their reference list on their resume and it says these 3 people, I'll look at that. And if the biggest one to me really is the clients, because I think that's what most, at least, in the construction world, when you're making the hire, you want to make sure that the clients you're working with love your work, because that's what's going to keep growing the business. And I'd say that's probably pretty consistent across most industries, unless you're in a real back office type role. But I just make sure they're relevant people. I always cringe when I see it's my high school football coach. And he's thinking like,
oh my gosh. Well, people have a separate list of names of 3 current people ready and waiting for a call.
Ready and waiting. And I think it shows like the preparation too, and how much you care and how much you thought about it. But it is something that people do kind of just think is a throwaway, but you'd be surprised how many clients want that. And I think it's increasing more because it's so expensive if you make a bad hire that that's a really
they're willing. I don't think anyone's ever brought that to my attention when I asked that question. And thank you so much for adding that.
Yeah, no worries.
It makes a lot of sense. So this is my favorite question. Thank you for sharing all of your expertise, but I'd love to hear what is next for you. Anything exciting that you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a little bit outside of my, I guess, career path, so to speak, but my other passion, which I know I mentioned in the bio, is this mental health topic within the business place.
Yeah.
And it's something which I'm seeing a lot more conversation around. And I think with kind of the shift that we're seeing in the workforce as a whole, where engagement's becoming a lot more important, particularly with millennials, Gen Zs, not to put too much of a stereotype there, but I think for people coming into the workforce, there's a lot more of an emphasis of finding a purpose in what you're doing, work-life balance, finding a deeper meaning, being understood, having your voice heard, being a contributor. We're seeing those things matter a lot more. And I think mental health, as far as burnout goes, as far as engagement goes, plays a huge role. And so one of my side projects that I'm working on right now, which will probably come to fruition here in the next, I'm aiming for before the end of the year, is starting a podcast really around entrepreneurialism, finding successful business people that have struggled with depression, anxiety, some of those harder subjects, and just really starting the conversation around like how you deal with that, how do you manage that within your own business if you're running your own business, or with coworkers, or if you're managing people, like how do you manage those issues? And the goal of it is really just to demystify, take away some of the negative stigma around those issues, and just that understanding of if you're going through a hard time, it doesn't mean that you're less of a person or you bring less to the table. And I think there's those stigmas that are around, mental illness in particular. And I think about like depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety.
Yeah.
They're huge and they hold a lot of people back. And obviously we have a culture of positivity, which is great.
Right. But it makes hard. And I do feel like entrepreneurialism can pass it when people do have those struggles. It can help. It can. I think it's sometimes it casts a harsher spotlight on depression and anxiety. Than it would when you're, in a working with a big company and maybe what feels like a smaller role. I think when all the pressure's on you, it probably magnifies a lot of that.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs that I've talked to even just about the topic. I think it resonates with them just with how up and down that can be. And I think as a whole, the workforce is sort of transitioning to where there's a lot more people that are thinking about being an entrepreneur, thinking about starting a business.
The gig economy is huge. It's growing.
To me, I have like the idea of, in the past it was like corporations, and I think in the future I like to think of like cooperations, where it's smaller entities actually coming together, focusing on your own strengths. But you still, I think that's just the big shift is it's like purpose and meaning, and obviously there are people who are highly successful in big corporations, and that's great. But I think there's now a lot more of a desire, particularly with the internet age and how you can start a business a lot easier. And there's a lot more of an emphasis on that. And I think, again, if you take that full weight of a business and you're an entrepreneur, you can go through some really dark times and really hard times. So I think it just resonates. So yes, I'm really excited about that.
I can't wait. That's exciting. Do you have a name yet, or is that still a work in progress?
No, I have a name, and this is, so a little bit of background too. I've actually been really against social media, and I listened to a couple of like TED Talks a while back about how social media can be really addictive and it can just waste a lot of time. And so I just took the stance of social media, it's not for me. I don't want to be involved. Obviously, LinkedIn for work was a priority, but outside of that. And so, but recently I've just seen that it's a powerful tool. Like if you use it the right way, it's a great way for reaching people. So I've got Instagram out there too, and the name of it's Crazy Successful. And,
I love that.
Yeah, so I had some positive feedback, and I thought that sounds cool. And getting together, I've got 3 guests that I just, obviously scheduling calls with to work on, and I am hoping to get that out by, like I said, by the end of the year. And that's what I'm most passionate about. And then obviously within the recruiting world, I think just continuing to work for the company I'm working for. And we've got a great mission. Our mission is to save companies money, get a good ROI, really create long-term partnerships. And and the best thing about this whole thing is my CEO is just incredibly supportive, especially around the mental health topic, which is huge. It's huge to have support from your leadership team, because obviously I'm posting about very sensitive topics. And my CEO, Jonathan Reynolds, great guy, just is all about it. And he's just like, yeah, man, this is what's going to help you. And this is about, what you're passionate about. Like, we love that. So just a huge shout out to him.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh gosh, I love that. Yeah, I love the idea of demystifying it. So Joel, if people want to reach out to you, tell us what social media, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn is the best one. It's what I'm most active on as far as just work. I'm on there all day.
Okay.
And luckily for me, there's only one Joel Lalgee in the world. So if the link doesn't work, just put in Google Joel Lalgee and you will see everything. Apologies for the MySpace page. It's super outdated. I don't know how to get rid of that. Yeah, so don't judge me for that. I was pretty young. But yeah, I would say just LinkedIn would be a great way. And then I believe we've got my personal email too. So
I do. I have your LinkedIn and your email on there. If your Instagram's up, let us know that as well. As Crazy Successful. Is that the name of the site? Okay, perfect. Well, Joel, thank you so much. I love your advice. I can't wait to see what comes of this podcast venture. And it was just such a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. And awesome, your mission to help job seekers. I love that. And I appreciate you having me on the show today.
You've been listening to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco. To learn more about storytelling strategies to catch the eye of today's skim online readers, hiring and decision makers, go to www.virginiafrancoresumes.com.